The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV, series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the final episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Picard called Farewell. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going, Dom?
And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to stick around to the end of the episode. We're going to have some of your listener feedback on some things we've been talking about. Be sure to share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow this community of Star Trek fans as so much new Star Trek stuff is coming out. There's lots to talk about, and I'm sure other Trekkie fans want to hear about it. That will help us reach more listeners. I want to tell you about another show on the network you're sure to enjoy called The Secrets of Doctor Who. If you're a Doctor Who fan, check it out wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Doctor Who. So, Jimmy, as we talk about this last episode of Star Trek Picard Season 2, can you give us a recap of what happens?
No, because Father Cory is going to have to leave at some point, so he's going to summarize his thoughts on the whole season, and then I'll summarize this episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've got something I have to hard out at some point during this episode, most likely. So I just wanted to take a quick second, just kind of give my general impressions, because I'm sure Jimmy and Dom will do the same at the end. And I will say I generally enjoyed it. I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as season 1, but I generally enjoyed it. Some things I liked better. One thing I wasn't a fan of, kind of the pacing of it, because it started out, very strong, very, action and moving the story along. And then it dragged for 5 or 6 episodes. And then the last 2 episodes were, now we got to clean up all our trouble and get it all taken care of. And they really compressed the story in basically the first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes. I mean, kind of in my opinion, if they had done a 5-episode season and cut out a lot of the middle episodes, it actually would have been a really good story. And again, for the season, but all in all, I enjoyed it. Very derivative of Star Trek 4, however, because we pointed that out. There's this scene very much was lifted from Star Trek 4. This is a nod to Star Trek 4. So I think they derived a lot from that, and kind of disappointed, of course, we didn't get to see a lot of the usual spaceships and different planets and stuff like that. But in general, I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a fairly decently done season. I would like to have seen them make some other choices. So that's kind of my little 5-minute spiel.
All right. Jimmy and I will give our impressions at the end.
Father Cory is suffering from time compression because it's
2 minutes. Yeah,
it only took 2 minutes, but okay.
Yeah,
very good. Good job. All right, Jimmy. Now, can we have that recap of the episode?
Last time, Queen Agnes left a mysterious message for Picard. For their mission to succeed, there must be 2 Rene Picards, one who lives and another who dies. This time, the gang discovers that Adam Soong has 2 backup plans to stop Rene from going to Europa. One is back at his high-tech bachelor pad, where he's got a bunch of drones primed to shoot down the spaceship. But Seven, Raffi, and Crystal Ball seize control of the drones after they're launched and play smash-up derby with them. The second backup plan is at the launch site, where Soong finagles his way into meeting Rene and then kills her with a neurotoxin. Only it isn't Rene, it's T'Lyn, who is pretending to be her using her changeling tech. Now thwarted at 18 minutes into the episode, Soong goes back to his high-tech bachelor pad, where he discovers his estranged clone daughter Cory is remotely deleting all his files. Wesley Crusher shows up, and he's now a traveler, who we learn are a time protection squad employing people like Supervisor T'Lyn. Wesley appears to Cory in a park and recruits her into the Travelers. Back at Chateau Picard, the Admiral puts the skeleton key in its hidey hole so he can find it as a little boy hundreds of years in the future, thus accepting his fate. Q then shows up and explains what this has all been about, getting Picard to accept and forgive himself for what happened to his mother. He explains that he doesn't want Picard to die alone, and although it will kill him, Q is willing to send the gang back to the future as his final act. Crystal Ball stays behind with cute Dr. Teresa and her son. The gang then appears on the bridge of the Stargazer, where Picard orders the ship's self-destruct to stop. Queen Agnes is revealed as the new Borg Queen, and she informs them that there is a huge, gigantic galactic thingamabob that is about to explode, and they need to harmonize the entire fleet's shields to stop it from destroying the quadrant. They do this and realize they've just seen the birth of a weird transwarp corridor. The Borg don't know who built it, but they say it's connected to a mysterious threat of some kind, so there's our hook for season 3. The Borg request provisional membership in the Federation and stay to guard the opening of the transwarp corridor. We then have a scene where old Guinan catches up with Picard and the gang at her bar, and our final scene is at Chateau Picard, where the Admiral is in the process of patching up his would-be romantic relationship with Laris, and we don't even get to see them kiss. The end.
Very disappointing. So credit to Jimmy, who predicted basically how the plot of the episode would go, that T'Lyn would assume the identity of Renee and be the second Renee and would sacrifice herself. So I give you credit for that.
And I would say, Chris staying behind was pretty much telegraphed from the moment the two ran into each other. He ran into the hospital there with Teresa. So
and
that was predicted.
And that the Queen would turn out to be, the Borg Queen would turn out to be Agnes was pretty clear from the moment that they merged back in episode 4 something or whatever.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of surprises in this final. I mean, it just kind of went according to how you expected it to go. So
the closest thing to a surprise was Q's motives.
Yes.
Of exactly what he was trying to do here.
Yeah. I want to talk about that. Well, let's talk about it now, because that's really the big surprise and the big thing. And we can get Father Cory's impression as well, which is, it was kind of a shocker, but not a huge shocker by the end of the season. But that Picard Q sees Picard as his friend, and he's wanting to do because they've always been this sort of antagonist thing. Although Q has always sort of told Picard, even though I disdain you for being a tiny little amoeba-like species, there's a connection, and it was always clearly been this connection.
Amoeba,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
But he sees him as a friend, and there's this clear affinity between Q and Picard, which kind of explains everything that from their first moment at Farpoint.
Well, there's a video that was put out a couple of months ago, before the season even started, that basically talked about Q. This was on a YouTube video, but guy just kind of going back through all the Q episodes and basically showing Q that he's a trickster, and while he's he does the jokes and he does the pranks and everything, he's doing it from a benevolent, not malevolent, but benevolent position.
Right.
That he's actually doing it, like, for example, he introduces, the episode where he knocks the Enterprise into the Delta Quadrant so they can run into the Borg for the first time.
Right.
That actually was to warn Starfleet and to give them time to prepare for the Borg coming, things like that.
And it's framed that way in the episode. It's like, you have no idea what's out there. Here's a glimpse.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's taking everything he did, including the trial, was actually for the good of humanity, and eventually Picard himself, as we see in this episode. But, and so it really isn't, when you look at his character that way, it isn't that big of a surprise, but still it is a different way of doing it. Yeah.
He says, Q says he's dying alone, and he doesn't want that for Picard. He sees, because he's going to leave Picard now, and he's almost like, I'm not going to be around to help you anymore, and I want you to have a better life than what you're living. So I've been trying to teach you this lesson about absolve yourself, forgive yourself of what you did as a child that you're not really responsible for. And like I said, for all his tormenting of Picard, he really did see him as a friend.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning of this season, Picard has always judged Q way too harshly. Yes, he's annoying, but no, he's not the malevolent guy you think he is. He doesn't lie to you. He does annoying things, but he does not lie. And they're constantly assuming he's lying and up to no good, and he's just on the spectrum. You know,
Right.
he needs to work on his people skills, but he's a good guy. One of the things that I liked is, and they hung a lantern on this, they turned it around at the end, the whole "I don't want you, Picard, to die alone," and the fact he's going to send them to the future is going to kill him, is Picard points out, well, you're not actually dying alone either. And he gives him a big hug. And that's nice. I really like that. Although there's some ambiguity. They left themselves a way to bring him back if they want, because since Crystal Ball stays, he says, oh, well, then I've got a little more energy. And they kind of imply that he uses that to bring Elnor back, but I don't know why he would need to do that, because they reset the timeline. Elnor should not die. Yeah. As you know, if they don't blow up the fleet, which is the first thing Picard does, is say, let's not blow up the fleet, then Elnor will still be alive. And there's also a line at the end where he's just about to send him to the future, and he says, I'll see you out there. And that's a door that they could exploit to bring him back if they want.
Well, Elnor did say when he showed up on video chat that he did remember dying. So they tied themselves to that. They didn't have to, but they did.
Yeah. Elrond lives. So let's jump back to the beginning of the episode and talk about how it started.
Let's jump back a little further because last episode when Agnes is making her pitch to the Queen about let's build a kindler, gentler collective, one of the things she says is let's build a collective of sevens. Right. And she talks about how unique Seven is. And in the gap between last week and this, I happened to watch Dark Frontier, which was a 2-part Voyager episode that deals with Seven and her relationship with the collective. And in that, the Queen they kind of retcon Seven's origin, and the Queen tells Seven that she was sent to humanity to learn about him. So they engineered her Voyager, taking her on board. And so they wanted a drone that could become more educated about humanity to facilitate humanity's assimilation. And now that she's back with the collective, they don't want to turn her into a drone again. They want her to be an individual, because that will help them with their evil plan. But Seven was set up, even in Voyager, to be a unique former individualistic Borg from the Borg's perspective. They wanted her to be that. So she wasn't just what she thought she was, which is just a typical drone. And I thought that shed some additional light on Agnes's let's build a collective of more individual people, not just drones, but like Seven. And so that was there in the original Voyager series. Also, Seven's parents were complete idiots.
Yes. Oh, that's clear.
Wow, were they stupid? I mean, beaming Borg drones on their ship to study them with their tiny daughter standing right there waiting to be assimilated. Yes. Okay. These Child Protective Services seriously needs to get involved in this situation.
Too late.
Yeah. They're kind of like the weird hippies who went to Africa to study silverback gorillas and living among them and end up getting killed by them.
I was thinking more the guy that went up to Alaska and got eaten by the bears that he was living with.
Right. Yeah, that sort of thing. Idealists, shall we say?
Yeah. But back at this beginning of this episode, we start with this great down the gantry shot where we're at the Europa mission launch site, and we zoom. We have this aerial shot and zoom down the gantry, which is a nice, really fun shot that you don't see every day.
Well, it's also reminiscent of the Gary 7 shot from Assignment Earth. We see that rocket in a very similar way.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying it didn't look like SpaceX's heavy lifting rocket, but it looked like SpaceX's heavy lifting rocket.
And
also, I love getting to see because the Gary 7 episode was a rip. Assignment Earth was a rip off of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So that Gene Roddenberry could start American Doctor Who series. And so I always love seeing T'Lyn using her sonic screwdriver to like beam him back to the pad and stuff.
We do get this scene at the very beginning where they're in the chateau and Picard is making this point that there was that family lore of the chateau getting shot up as the family took back the chateau from the Nazis in World War II. And those bullet holes from the Special Forces drones are actually the bullet holes. So therefore, we're on the right track. We've set things back to where they're supposed to be so far. So that's interesting little bit of information there.
Yeah, Rios is also collecting all of their futuristic tech so they won't leave any of it behind.
No butterflies.
No butterflies. And they never explain what happened to the bodies of the Borg, how they got rid of them.
Right. Well, they probably put him on board this La Serena to get with you.
Queen left.
Yeah. She beam him aboard, maybe?
They don't establish that.
Yeah. Headcanon.
Yeah, because some of them got beamed into walls. I mean,
some of them, like
are they
3
still
of them
there?
did.
That's going to make some interesting future when they rebuild Chateau Picard into a winery. Some future construction workers to going down in there. I am not going back down in those tunnels.
Yeah.
So T'Lyn gets this haunted look on her face when the 2 Renees problem comes up, and that's when Picard figures out what she's going to do, that she's going to kill herself. And he forbids it. And of course, she tells her, and good for her, my fate is not yours to decide.
Yeah. Dude, my life. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And you clearly he's is conflicted because she looks exactly like Laris, because on Star Trek, ancestors and descendants always look exactly alike. Right, Jimmy?
Lots of dominant genes in the Star Trek universe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You shared a video with us of where somebody did a compilation of Star Trek episodes where descendants and ancestors look exactly like. And Star Trek's not alone in this. Doctor Who does this as well. So,
oh yeah.
So we have this.
Oh yeah, like with Dodo Chaplet, because they eventually establish. I mean, like hundreds of years later, after the French Revolution, she still looks identical.
Right.
Or the descendant looks identical.
The one we talked about recently that's it's not out yet, which is where
Orson
Danny Pink and
yeah.
Orson Pink are the same actor, so.
Yeah.
So we have the astronauts who apparently Vandenberg Air Force Base is where this is launching from. That's my headcanon because it's in California. And the astronauts are, for some reason, they're breaking quarantine on the day of launch, having only been in quarantine for a day. I'm not sure they understand how quarantine works.
Yeah.
No.
Picard. Given that we've all been in quarantine for 2 years, you'd think they'd know better. But anyway, Sung decoys the rest of the team to his house where they have to stop the drones, his backup plan of the suicide drones.
Which they stop remarkably easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand why he's got this recording of himself talking there. Like they're gonna know he's not there as soon as they enter the house. So
to delay. That's the only thing I could think of.
It's just, yeah. Meanwhile, Sung is at the launch base at the launch, acting like an ass. I'm sorry, but
wow, isn't he?
As if any amount of donation to whatever it is that's funding this mission would get you the opportunity to break quarantine protocol and act like an entitled ass toward the people in charge. Like,
I was gonna say, in the real world, they would have said, "Well, here's your money back.
Yeah,
we'll find other sources. Thanks, bye.
Here's the door." I mean, a mission like this would cost billions, like to Europa. Like, how much could he have possibly have given to fund this? So anyway, that's again, it's the real world.
I called what he was going to do, which was use a poison that he would have on his hand, so that when he didn't end up shaking her hand, which is what I thought he was going to do, but instead he puts his hand on the side of her face,
right,
to transfer the toxin. But I predicted, like, he's got a little protective rubber barrier glued to his palm with toxin on it, and that's how he's gonna kill her. And it's like, yep, that's what happened.
We've seen that many times in various spy shows, Doctor Who, that sort of thing. So
I was kind of surprised they wrap up his threat in the first 18 minutes.
Yes.
And then the ship blasts off and that part of the story is done.
Well, like we were saying before, and actually some listeners were saying, there's a whole lot to wrap up in this one episode, and they needed to move fast, and they did. We did get that scene where T'Lyn finally gets to talk to Renee in person and makes this connection of who she has been throughout her life. They try to do the misdirection so that we don't really know it's not Renee getting poisoned. But, everyone knew it was.
I mean, but that was pretty quick, though, anyways. She's talking to Renee, goes out, gets poisoned, and dies in about 5 minutes. And in that time, Renee went to the shuttle or went to the booster, got in, and took off. Yeah. Yeah. Again, not realistic, but whatever. Okay.
But as the rocket takes off, that's when Picard tells T'Lyn to look up this line that we keep hearing that his mother would tell him, that Queen Agnes tells him on the bridge of the Stargazer, this look up. And now while Sung rages, Cory is using remote access VPN protocols to delete all those files, which is why you always need off-site backups, folks.
Yeah.
Come on.
And not only do you need to back up your data with duh.
Yeah.
But if you detect that files are being deleted from your computer as you're looking at it, you do not start typing on your computer to try to stop the deletion. You unplug the machine immediately.
Yes. Turn off your Wi-Fi. Turn off the cable modem. Right. Turn it all off.
You should have offsite backup. You should have a drive that's disconnected and in a drawer, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah. Right.
Welcome to Secrets of Technology.
Exactly. You can learn more about all this stuff on the Secrets of Technology. We've talked about backups a lot. So once all his data is gone, no pun intended, he opens up a drawer, pulls up a hard copy file of something called Project Khan, and thus we have Khan Noonien Singh.
And it says it's a confidential funding report dated June 7th, 1996.
Right.
Which is and nothing ever happens with this. This is the last we see of Adam Sung.
Yeah.
He goes out on this, looking at this file of Project Khan, implying he's going to do something with it. And and I suspect he may be behind the threat for season 3. Because we know Brent Spiner is involved.
Yeah.
We've got this transwarp corridor that is tied to something.
Yeah.
And why does it show up at the same place that the Borg who have showed up? And he had this deal with Queen Agnes, and I'm suspecting he may be the threat or be behind the threat that we're going to see in season 3. He creates whatever or something. Yeah. Well, except Khan is left Earth in the 90s.
I'm not sure that that they're going to stick with that continuity, though.
I'm not sure they are either. But if so, they're replaced.
It's
the natural way to read it is this is something left over from the eugenics wars that occurred in the 90s. Now they've complicated that, and we'll have to see where it goes. But one way or another, I suspect that they may pick this up in season 3, and he may be behind the threat.
And it's clear that Cory and all the other experiments he's been doing came from that project in the first place. The research started with that, and so this could be just say he's starting all over again.
Right.
Yeah.
But
okay, let's talk about our big cameo appearance in this episode. We have the appearance of Will Wheaton as Wesley Crusher, and I hate to say it, but I saw him more as Will Wheaton than as Wesley Crusher by this point. I've seen Will Wheaton as himself so often that he's more Will Wheaton than Wesley because he's an adult now. So
and he wasn't as annoying as Wesley was.
You're saying he's more man than machine now.
Yes, more man than annoying boy now. So he shows up as a traveler to Cory to invite her as his companion to on the TARDIS to go and save the space-time continuum. The travelers are in charge of the supervisor. So now we're really getting an idea of who the Watchers are, what they're about. He talks about the tapestry of the time-space continuum is always a thread's pull away from annihilation, and they're there to stop that annihilation. We've seen the time cop thing a lot, especially like in Enterprise. That there are
and
beings
Voyager.
Voyager, beings and organizations out there trying to keep time travel from destroying everything. So
after all, he told a joke and changed a century. So I mean,
yeah,
changed a century on a planet.
Right. And so he invites her to come and be a watcher, which is interesting. And again, I don't think they're actually going to do anything with that in the series.
They might,
but
they might, because they've had this actress playing Cory in the first 2 seasons. If
Cory,
if Sung is behind the thread in season 3, his daughter might get involved.
That's true. If he's back.
We could see a Soji Cory meetup at some point.
Right.
We also could have Wesley come back to reunite all the gang and he might bring Cory with him.
I think we've heard that we've been told by the producers that they're bringing back the original TNG crew for season 3. They have to bring Wesley back. And frankly,
they don't have to.
Well, I mean, have to as in, from my point of view, as a moral thing. They really, if they're going to reunite the crew, they've got to bring Wesley in. Is my point? Is my thought.
This wasn't just a cameo. I mean, there's obviously more plans for Wesley in this than just.
Yeah, I would like to see. No, actually, this is what I was going to say. I felt good about Wesley showing up. I was one of those people back in the day who like, oh, Wesley's annoying. But I moderated my stand on it, especially given the things that Will Wheaton has said about behind the scenes and how it was for him on the set. But I'm glad Wesley was there, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the crew.
I'm glad Wesley was there too. It just seemed very abrupt. He shows up, he gives his recruitment pitch, and then they're out of the show for this season.
Right.
If he does come back for season 3, there has to be a shut up Wesley somewhere. There has to be.
Yes, there has to be.
I thought Wesley's character arc in Next Gen, I mean, he started as a very annoying character, and then they started to redeem him.
Yeah.
And as the writing got better, and then when he went to Starfleet Academy, things were at a high point for him, and then they ruined it.
Yep.
In his final appearance, where he decides to go off and become a traveler, and we actually have Beverly Crusher delivering a line like, "Be sure and keep bundled up on those higher dimensions and stuff." And and you had this. He basically became a space hippie, and then we didn't see him again until the last of the Next Gen movies, where he is a guest at the wedding reception for Riker and Troy, but he doesn't have any lines, and so there's no explanation for, okay, weren't you going to higher dimensions? But apparently he's integrated that into his life now, and I didn't like the way they handled it, but I think this kind of redeems it.
Yeah,
right.
It gives him purpose.
Yeah.
So I seem to recall with Nemesis, there was a cut scene that was going to have him kind of explain how he traveled for a while and then decided to go back to Starfleet. But
yeah, I remember hearing about that at the time. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's entirely possible that they're going to, even if he's not in season 3 of Picard, that they may incorporate this whole idea of the travelers into a new series at some point, because we've still got the Section 31 series that they've talked about coming and other things like that. So it could be they've got other plans as well.
Gene Roddenberry's got his backdoor pilot.
I was going to say Roddenberry's going to get his Doctor Who spinoff anyways.
So at this point, the rest of the crew is hanging around the chateau, thinks that they're stuck in the 21st century and they're not getting back.
And Seven has a great line. It's like, how does money work?
And meanwhile, as you mentioned, Picard is in that hallway hiding the skeleton key that he will find as a child that will let his mother out of the room, where she will then kill herself.
Yeah, only that key surely doesn't stay there for 400 years.
That is not hidden that well.
Yeah. And even if it were, I mean, if I own the house and I have a bedroom with a door and I don't have a key for it, I'm going to have a locksmith come in and make a new key.
Well, it might be like you said, it's a skeleton key, so it opens any door. So maybe they already have.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah. Well, they probably, if you come to the derelict mansion, you're going to replace all the door locks and stuff like that.
I mean, unless you're going for like the super retro tech, meaning no technology other than, basic. all those doors by the 25th century are going to have, bioscanners anyways.
Right.
So
ring door locks. So that's when Q shows up and congratulates him. You've accepted your fate. You've accepted you chose the Jean-Luc you are. You've absolved yourself. Maybe now you'll give the future you the chance to be loved. So that's so Q reveals like the whole point was Picard was lonely and making himself lonely as a punishment.
He also quotes the famous aphorism, "Know thyself," which was from on the Temple of Apollo at Delphi.
Right. And you mentioned Q is going to send them home as his final act. Rios decides to stay, which is I hope that apparently it does work out with Teresa, but man, that's risking a lot on this just woman you just met
3 days ago.
Yeah, if it doesn't work out, you're stuck in the 21st century alone, dude.
Yeah, that's just the opposite of Kirk's love interest that gets stuck in the 23rd century. So
yeah, Jillian. Century. Yeah.
We do have a nice on-screen acknowledgement as Q is talking to Picard, after he's hidden the key, and Picard is like, "Why me?" and why this? Why are you doing this? And Q is explicit with him and says, "Because it matters to me. You matter to me."
Yes. I like that. Yeah. It really changes everything we've thought about Q. I mean, for some people have thought about Q perhaps, but the outward vision of Q in the past was just like annoying Loki figure, mischief, the god of mischief. But this he becomes a friend, a helper, guardian angel in some ways. Please God, let my guardian angel not be like
guardian
you.
Angel. Yeah. Very mischievous guardian angel.
Yeah. I'm sad that Rios stays behind. Not that I thought he would end up in the third season of Picard, but I just like the character. I really, and I like the idea of him on the Stargazer as a captain. There would be some fun stories like with Rios as captain of the Stargazer, chopping his cigar, kind of running around the universe. It reminds me a lot of Peter David's novel series about the USS Destiny, and I forget the name of the captain on that, but he was sort of that kind of character, half piratical almost character. Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of sad to see.
If Rios had gone Back to the Future, he'd be coming out with like cases of cigars.
Yes,
not even like little boxes. Like he'd have crates of cigars that he'd take with him.
I beamed through Havana on my way.
Yeah.
So
because they established the cigars taste better in the 21st century.
Yes.
It's real.
Picard tells Q that he doesn't go alone. That's the whole point of this, that he's not leaving alone. No one leaves alone. And that's when they return to the future, to the moment just before the self-destruct. And of course, Picard waits around as it clicks down and stops it at the last second.
At least he's third to last. He stops it at the third second, which is at least better than the cliche of waiting to the first.
Yes. Like, why? Like, what is the false drama? Oh no, he's going to let it happen. No one believes that it's actually going to happen again.
At least there's not the big red button that doesn't stop till 1.
Right. And then we get the Queen Agnes reveal.
And then we get galactic threat out of nowhere.
Right.
It's like, oh, great. Giant space anomaly, gonna kill a quadrant. Yeah, whatever. Okay, go back to Discovery.
Yeah, and then we just stop it. Like 2 minutes later, we've stopped this giant threat to the quadrant. The galactic level of threat, and then gone. Like that's a head snapper. So they need all the ships. They work in concert. Picard gives 7 the field commission to captain of the Stargazer as admiral, which kind of closes the loop on what Rafi had been telling her earlier about. You would have made a good captain.
And we have a fascinating line from 7 where she gets on she tells the communications officer to get on the phone to all the other captains in the fleet because they need to let the Borg harmonize their shields. And so, which is what the Borg were trying to do back in episode 1. That's why they needed to. It's like, can't talk now, got to do this. And because of the galactic threat that they were aware of that they didn't tell the audience about. and they were trying to network all of the ships so they could bring their shields into harmony to deflect this blast from this thing or absorb this blast from this thing. And so Seven, now in command of the Stargazer, turns to the communications officer and says, "Tell them do not resist." And it's like, okay, that's just what is going to convince them not to resist. Having the former Borg, now captain of the Stargazer, working with the Borg, telling him not to resist. That's going to inspire confidence.
So then we have the J.J. Abrams-like moment where everyone and all the planets in the sector all at once see the same anomaly in their sky from hundreds of light years away, or dozens even. That's not how it works. That is not how science works. Stop doing that.
They wanted the Star Wars scene, of the revised ending of Return of the Jedi, where there's the fireworks going off and all the planets and everybody's celebrating at the same time.
Well, it's just like everybody sees this anomaly in the sky. It wouldn't happen for decades, centuries even.
Well, you can headcanon those as flash forwards decades.
Okay.
But what struck me about this ending is, oh great, another console ending where we've just done something of a technical nature with our consoles, and now we just stand here watching a screen for the finale.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as you said, somebody has made a transwarp conduit unlike any others. This is, as a reminder, this is how the Borg move around faster than light. Is they use transwarp conduits. The Voyager used one to get back from the Delta Quadrant, that sort of thing. But this isn't a Borg one. And Agnes says it's a threat and requests provisional membership in the Federation so the Borg can remain to guard this gate. They are the Night Watch, if from the Game of Thrones. They stand on the wall and watch. At
least it wasn't some sort of transwarp conduit.
Some sort of threat. Then we get, as you mentioned, we get to the bar where Guinan had a photo on the wall of Cristobal Rios and Teresa from the 21st century. They apparently founded this group called Mariposa, where they go around bringing medical care to people in need.
And she says, I know it was kind of risking things having this picture hanging up here all this time, but you were always more clever than observant.
I like Picard. Yeah, that was good. And it turns out that young Ricardo, Teresa's son, he's the one who headed up the team that took the organism that Rene Picard brought back from Europa and modified it to create whatever it is that they use to clean up the atmosphere and the oceans and save the planet from the natural disaster stuff. And then Picard at the end goes back to the chateau, as you said. Well,
actually, I want to mention something before we leave the bar, which is, a couple things. So when Guinan is telling Picard about the fates of Cristobal and Teresa.
Oh yeah.
She mentions, how they died and stuff like that. And she says that they founded a medical movement called the Mariposas, and Mariposa is Spanish for butterfly.
Yes, that's right.
So
butterfly effect.
Ironic name there. Yeah. Also, they give Elnor his first drink of something alcoholic, and like everyone who has their first drink of alcohol, he's immediately like, that is vile. Is it supposed to be like that? But with his ultimate candor. Right.
And we do find out that while Teresa dies of old age, that Rios died in a bar fight in Morocco over medical supplies. Yeah. His last breath appropriately into a cigar, which is good. That's appropriate way for him.
So as Guinan says, he died as he lived.
Yes.
Which is true of just about everybody.
That's right. And as you mentioned, Picard goes back to the chateau to find Laris's packed bags in the hallway and sees her, and then goes and talks to her. But we don't get the conversation. We
get a little bit of it. He's fumbling his way to an apology for being an insensitive jerk and let's start over now.
Yeah. While time doesn't give second chances, perhaps people could, although it apparently does give time.
Just kiss her. Kiss the girl.
Stop
okay?
talking.
That's going to do a lot more for you than all this talk. Because you're Mr. Talk, and that's all you've been up to now is Mr. Talk. Do something finally.
Yes.
Kiss her with your robot lips.
I'm reminded of that guy from It's a Wonderful Life. Kiss her, will you already?
Yeah.
Youth just wasted on the young, and he's not even all that young. Although technically he might be 3 months old. so
Picard
that's
in his robot body.
Yes, Picard in the robot body. So that's it for the episode, and now it's a chance for you and I to talk about what we thought of this season. So what did you think of the season?
I enjoyed it more than the second, at least on first watch. I mean, I enjoyed it more than the first. Yeah. I acknowledge that I wouldn't cut it down to 5. I might trim a little bit, and there are things that need to be explained better, but I think I liked it more than Father Cory did. I could see shortening it to 8 episodes, because and a couple of the episodes were short ones anyway. They were like 40 minutes long or even a little bit less than that. And so I think you could have trimmed it a little bit, but I also would have I don't know that I actually would end up trimming it because I probably would have shifted that time to explaining some of the things.
Yeah.
That they kind of went over very quickly. But I would say that I enjoyed it much more than I expected to once I realized how much of it was going to be spent in the 21st century. Early on, people will recall perhaps from our reviews where I said, before they got to the 21st century, they're going to the 21st century. And I don't know that I want to spend 8 episodes there. And it ended up being more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. It was better than other time travel episodes to contemporary times that I've seen them do.
I kind of wish that we had shifted some of the length of the season was fine to me, like you said, except I would have shifted more of the time spent back in the 24th century. And instead of this quickly, the 3-minute galactic disturbance in solution, spend a whole episode on that.
And they could have pulled all that forward into the first episode or two. Yeah. And had the audience understand and thinking, oh, we've got this double threat. The Borg are here. They're taking stuff over. And there's this galactic thing that's about to blow a light year from here or whatever. And then the threat would not just suddenly come out of nowhere in the final 10 minutes of the final episode.
Right. Right. Yeah. We wrapped up.
The fact it does come out, and they even point to, we're going to stay here and guard this thing, okay? Because someday a threat is going to come out of it. Well, okay, that's obviously going to be season 3.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, the fact that the resolution of the whole Sung thing took place in 5 minutes or so, all those things we could have spent a little more time on those and less time in that middle dragging parts where like just that whole thing with the FBI agent felt a little
tacked on
and dragged out. Like, So, but in general, overall, and so that's I have quibbles with how they organized it. Overall, I enjoyed the story. I liked the resolution better than I liked season's 1's resolution. I really like the
giant wavy Doc Ock arms come out of a space warp and then go back in.
Right. So I think overall, I was pretty happy with it, with the season, and I think better than season 1, and maybe season 3 will be even better. So go with that.
Yeah. Speaking of season 3, so I have in my notes my predictions for season 3.
Okay.
It will be, and I could be completely wrong about all this, but just looking at the evidence at hand currently, my notes say confidential funding report from 1996, Project Con. So that's going to be involved. Threat comes barreling out of the transwarp conduit, at least temporarily overwhelming Queen Agnes and the Borg Guardians, who are now provisional members of the Federation. The next-gen crew is reunited to fight them, except for Wesley. Possibly the threat is genetic augments created by Adam Sung, and possibly Wesley and Cory return to help fight the threat.
Did we ever finish everything having to do with the Romulans and the Borg cube and that Romulan mythology?
No, that was all. That's all. So, dude, that's so season 1.
Just like, I wonder though, like, are we ever going to come back to that? That's because it just was kind of dropped there and never resolved. And they were making a big deal out of it.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it would. So something happened to the Borg. Yeah. And that crippled this cube that then got exploited over 20 years by Federation and Romulans.
Yeah.
And they may, I mean, they kind of implicitly promise the audience, we're going to explain what happened to this thing. And since season 3 has been announced as the last, I hope that they come back to that and explain it. It may be the same threat,
right?
You know, but we'll have to see.
Okay, it'll be interesting. I would hope. I mean, that would be a real cop out if they don't. All right, so let's move on to our feedback, shall we?
Oh, sure.
We've got 2 pieces of feedback. First one is Casey via email, who writes, hey guys, I've enjoyed picking apart this season of Picard with you. Really looking forward to Strange New Worlds. Not sure if you all mentioned this season of the podcast, but of course, we've got these mysterious Watcher figures in Picard. I believe the concept of Watchers was quite big in Second Temple Jewish writings and works like Second Enoch. I don't know much about
First
them.
Enoch.
Okay. I don't know much about them, but I do believe they were some sort of angelic beings. Curious if the writers drew upon this. So, Jimmy, what do you know about this?
Well, yeah, and actually, the idea of Watchers goes back farther, of the kind that Casey's mentioning, goes back farther than Second Temple Judaism. They were also found, and apparently where Second Temple Judaism got them was, I probably should explain that. So, as you would expect, Second Temple Judaism is the period in which the Second Temple was in operation. And so it's after the Babylonian exile up through the time of Jesus to the destruction of the Second Temple in AD 70. And there is various literature written in this period, including First Enoch and maybe Second Enoch and so forth, that is not part of the Bible, or at least normal Bibles. Although if you go to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, you do have First Enoch in your Bible. And there are these angelic figures known as Watchers that feature in this literature and are connected with the Great Flood and the Nephilim and so forth. Check out the episode of Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World on the Nephilim if you want more information on that. But they are paralleled, and apparently the idea of them to some extent originally goes back to ancient Mesopotamia, where the Babylonians had a similar concept of Watchers. They, as the name suggests, they are guardians. You know, they're watchmen. They watch for danger. So they're these angelic watchmen or angelic guardians, and or heavenly guardians in the Babylonian scheme, since they don't really have the same concept of angels as messengers. And people would make little statuettes of them and bury them in the foundations of their houses or other buildings to guard the house. And so this is a common concept. Basically, they're just heavenly watchmen or heavenly guards. And that's what T'Lyn is doing, is she's guarding Renee. It's possible that the writers knew about this and it's a conscious reference, but I think it's also possible that they just call them Watchers not because they're aware of the biblical background here or Second Temple background here, but because it's just another way of saying watchman or guardian. That's why we have guards in every society, so we have Watchers in every society. And it's possible that they are picking this up from Second Temple literature, but I think it's also possible it's independent of that.
Yeah, I think the TV series Highlander, if you remember that one, based on the immortals who kill each other with swords.
There can be only one.
There could be only one. And there were Watchers in that. They were people, regular humans, who were watching and chronicling the activities of these immortal beings. So Watcher as a concept is
universal.
Common.
It's just, watch is a common verb because humans are creatures that rely primarily on the sense of vision. If we were dogs, the equivalent would be smellers.
Smellers. All right.
Go back to the year 2021, 2024. Woof. There will be a smeller.
So our second bit of feedback comes from Davo, who writes, Hi there, gentlemen. Davo here from Melbourne, Australia, a longtime podcast listener, first-time emailer. Thoroughly enjoy Secrets of Star Trek and Secrets of Stargate. In relation to Picard Season 2 story arc regarding Picard's issues with his mother, I'm just wondering if you guys are aware of Patrick Stewart's personal issues surrounding his father's shell shock from World War II and the domestic abuse he inflicted on Patrick's mother when Patrick was a child. Patrick Stewart discusses this on his episode of Who Do You Think You Are, which I think is a TV show. Mm-hmm. It's interesting how this season of Picard touches on the character dealing with something that was real in the actor's life.
Yeah, I'm aware of a little bit of this, and on YouTube, for people who want to look it up, Patrick Stewart does talk. I mean, you could look up like Patrick Stewart shell shock or Patrick Stewart, Who Do You Think You Are? And there are clips of him discussing this. And apparently his father, after he came back from the war, did not recognize that he was suffering from what today we would call post-traumatic stress disorder, but he exhibited symptoms of it and was undiagnosed. And apparently that led to a domestic abuse situation that I don't have a lot of detail about, but Patrick Stewart was involved in the writing process for this series, at least at a high level. He didn't write individual scripts, but he had concept approval, and he pushed the writers and producers to explore new territory for his character. And that's why we've had a much more introspective kind of presentation of Picard than we got in Next Generation. And so it wouldn't be surprising to me for that to have come up in discussions with the producers as something that we could explore that would be personally meaningful to Patrick Stewart as an actor. And how like his perspective on his father would have had to shift from the time when he was a child and was embedded in the situation to his perspective as a mature adult, understanding what happened to his father to make him that way in the war, and having a different perspective on the struggles that his father was going through that as a child he wouldn't have been aware of.
You make a good point, by the way, which I've been thinking about, and I don't know if we've actually brought up explicitly before in our discussion of the series, but this really is a series about Picard. It's an internal, investigation, that's not the right word, but an internal exploration of who sort of Jean-Luc Picard is.
Deconstruction and reconstruction. Yeah. I mean, this captain, who is he? Why is he the way he is? Who could he become? It's not Star Trek: The Next Generation, Returns. It's Jean-Luc Picard. Who is he? Yeah.
And I like
the name.
That. Yeah. I mean, you could have done it with Kirk or Cisco or something like that. It would be interesting. An exploration of the character, the person. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you both to Davo and Casey for your feedback. We love getting feedback. So as we wrap up, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Rob L., Joseph H., Tony L., Gerardo E., and Greg C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So we'd love to hear from you what you think of Star Trek Picard's season finale, Farewell. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. We'll be back next time, and we'll be discussing the season premiere of the very new series, Strange New Worlds. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for sharing with me the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And also thanks to Father Cory, who had to go, but we want to thank him as well for joining us. And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, the reasons we tell people we don't love them are worthless.